Welcome to the Keeping Up Appearances podcast. I'm Callum Murray, and with me is
Bob Cole,
Sean O'Hara,
and Michael Tosh.
It's Carney, what's he going to do? Ronnie! Jackson Ronnie! Oh, yes!
Hey, Bob, do me a favour, take your headphones out when Callum talks about Socrates' glove.
Could do.
I want everyone to hear that bit.
So we're going to start this week with a new feature, which is called Marooned 5. Now, this came about from a few years ago, while in the pub I boldly proclaimed that Maroon 5's top 3 songs would match any other artist's top 3 songs. It's always been a hot topic of debate between us, which we thought we could make a great Desert Island Disc theme podcast, to which the name Marooned 5 was created. Now, if we've learned anything from Carl Pilkington, is that if you've got a great name, you have to make a feature for it, and that's exactly what we've done. So Maroon 5 will work like this. Every week we'll have a theme, and we all have to select a player, a team, a match that we think best fits that theme. The fifth person will be selecting a different way. It could be the most obvious answer, a bit like in Desert Island Disc, the way the Bible's already given to you. It could be Bob's Everton answer for that theme, or it could be selected by the fans. Okay, so let's start with this week's feature. Okay then, so for this week's Maroon 5, the very first episode, what we're going to do is we're going to pick our favourite football mavericks. So the slightly extravagant players, our favourite players who would fit that genre. So the obvious one we're going to go for this week is Paul Gascoigne. Hopefully it is fairly obvious why we picked him. Fantastic footballer, unbelievable talent. We're obviously a bit mad. There's plenty of stories I'm sure people could go into, but we're going to start today with Callum's. Callum, who is your football maverick?
My football maverick will be Balotelli. I think kind of fits the bill. Kind of an out there personality, a bit rogue in some of his decisions and sort of how he carried himself. But yeah, like a special talent and someone who probably didn't fulfill the full potential, but he just had something about him. He was a bit crazy, a bit unpredictable. He didn't know what he's going to do next. Obviously, I think all Mavericks kind of have that iconic moment. I think obviously Balotelli had the "Why Always Me" moment, and it always did seem to be about him. And I think that's like a classic Maverick. I think off the pitch he was as mad as he was on it. Stories of when he was at City and going around in Manchester and stuff, and the things he was getting up to, and the trouble he was getting into. And I don't think he slowed down in that sense. I think he just one of those out there personalities that showed on the pitch and off the pitch as well. So he would be my vote as a real footballer maverick.
How good was he as a player, do you reckon? How good could he have been?
I think he was very good. I think it's probably one of those where, like, if he wasn't as much of a maverick, he probably could have been a lot better. He just looked like somebody who maybe didn't take it or himself as seriously as he probably could have done. But like all like kind of natural abilities, it looked like he seemed to have, and he's kind of showed that wherever he's gone since Man City. But it's always been in kind of like flashes. But I think he's one of those where probably a bit of a wasted talent by probably not having his head screwed on as much.
I often think back to that semi-final in the Euros against Germany when Germany were hot favourites. He scores them 2 goals. And they just think that one of them is an absolute like screamer, just like, as you say, all the natural ability, everything physically as well. He was tall, he was strong, he was quick. Something of a waste of talent, maybe. I think that's an element of Mavericks, isn't it? You sort of think there's that part of it where you mentioned, to fulfill the potential, where they're as good as they could have been.
Mm-hmm. No, yeah, exactly. I agree, and yeah, I think he had everything to his game. I think sort of technically everything else, scored different types of goals, and yeah, just one of those where you think he probably had a lot more to give. And I think managers have tried to sort of coach him and help him in that, but I think just the nature of him and his personality and what he was about maybe made that a bit difficult. But yeah, I think he fits the Maverick.
Yeah, playing Balotelli, the first player to be marooned. Sean, what about yourself?
Well, we talk about Balotelli perhaps not fulfilling his potential. My choice is the opposite. Someone who had absolutely no right to do what he's done. A maverick in the sense of they almost feel like they're from a different era, like they've been plonked into a different era. So my choice for football maverick is Jamie Vardy. yeah, from my point of view, I've always kind of had a bit of a soft spot for him. Maybe not always. I remember at the time when he first shot onto the scene, well, when he had the big season with Leicester anyway, and he was being spoken of in the same sentences as like Van Nistelrooy when he broke his record. I almost kind of had a bit of a thought of he shouldn't really be spoken in the same sentences as these strikers. But then from that point, I just think, and I kind of grew a new respect for him in that you think of where he's come from. Obviously, I think he was playing for Sheff Wed, wasn't he, until he was, I don't know, 16, something like that. I think got dropped, fell down into non-league, and then worked his way up into a Leicester team, struggled at first, and then kind of came into his own. Had absolutely no right to perform as well as he did in the Premier League. He was top scorer as well, wasn't he, one year? Was it the COVID year? He was top scorer, he won the Golden Boot.
Yeah.
And he's so unconventional in the way he talks, kind of like you've got so many footballers these days who are media trained. And then you got Jamie Vardy, who's just like, looked like he's just walked in from the park. He wasn't like never met a journalist before. He talks about having Red Bulls and I don't know, he's everything you don't think a footballer is going to be. And yeah, I think he's great. Even more so as well is when he first came through, he had a bit of a reputation of like this non-league little scrapper. And then you think of where he's come to now, where he's had to play through different managers. He's gotten older. He's had to adapt his style, scoring different types of goals, playing different types of systems. I think he's so much cleverer and so much better than a lot of people give him credit for. And I think we will look back on Jamie Vardy as like a bit of a mystery, but also like a very, very good Premier League footballer.
I think I was watching a few weeks ago is like, one of them on Sky, the Premier League 100 goals, and is one of that. And like the two things that sort of jumps out is like, as I say, like the way he scores his goals, it's sort of you think as long as he just gets through and he just hits it hard and low.
Yeah.
Just he's quick, isn't he? He's powerful. And the other thing is just like the amount of times he celebrates by just winding fans up and getting in the face.
I love all that. Yeah.
About 50 of them seem to be in front of like West Brom, and I just noticed like the amount of goals in front of the West Brom fans, and in the same corner. I know what you mean with the Maverick. He's great. A lot of people hate him. I'm a big fan myself.
Oh, I love him. I love them like them horrible footballers. Like, do you remember when me and you went to Leeds, the Everton away at Leeds, and like that's when I fell in love with El Hadj Diouf. I know he's not very well liked, but I just loved. He had the Everton fans eating out of his hand. It was unbelievable.
Just always that thing, isn't it? Why like you see them when like they score that goal and you've got them people in the front of them like shouting and screaming, you're thinking, why are you so angry? He's exactly what he's in it. He's absolutely loving that.
Yeah. But I just think even like when you look at his goals, like that Premier League 100 club, and you see his goals, like obviously he's got like the worldie against Liverpool and got like the odd goal like that, but generally they're like running in behind, aren't they? Or just a little poacher goal, like to get into space, and you think he hasn't come through an academy system where like these top level clubs. He's come up in non-league and just learned these skills there, and I just think for him to be able to be playing as high as he can, even getting in the England squad, just unbelievable.
Yeah, I think he's a
football. Sorry, Cal.
No, I was going to say I think he's a good Maverick in the sense of like everything about him, even his story. It's like quite unconventional, quite Maverick in the way he sort of came through, and it's just quite like, it's not usual, and he just doesn't look like a Premier League footballer. Doesn't look like he lives like a Premier League footballer, treats his body like a Premier League footballer. You see Morgan Trainer, the Red Bull, as you said, like he just doesn't look that healthy. If you've seen him in the street, I don't think you'd say he's an athlete. He's just like that kind of person. I think the wind up and things like that. He's maybe in like the true sense, he's a bit of a Maverick. Possibly just like generally in life, a Maverick. Maybe not even like football sense. He's just a bit like that kind of character. No, if he wasn't playing football,
avoid in the pub.
Yeah, if he wasn't playing football, he'd be the exact same as Sunday League kind of thing, and he'd probably be a bit mean, a bit not, but quite funny and probably quite sound. He's just like a Maverick kind of individual. But yeah, I think it's a good one.
I can't stand him.
Get it?
Absolutely hate him. And
that's what we wanted.
And his wife.
Yeah, but she's not in the list.
Well, you haven't got to meet.
I know we had a
Wags is next week.
Hate him through association then.
Legend.
Shall I go next? My one I'm going to go for is Socrates. So I like sort of thinking back to old footballers, and I like reading books and watching old things. So one of the first people that jumped out to me was yeah, as I say, Socrates. I'm very much a YouTube watching old things on YouTube, and I always end up back at my favourites, which is the 1982 Brazilian World Cup side. Didn't win it, and I think he was sort of the fulcrum of that side. Him and Zico, and just a fantastic footballer, just such a graceful. I think I play a bit like Socrates. I don't, but a tall, runs around, looks like he glides on the pitch. But I think the maverick element is there quite a positive thing. I know Callum's got a few stories he can potentially tell in a minute, but he's like, I read his book. He was a doctor, qualified doctor. He wouldn't play football full time until he'd qualified through his studies. He refused to train until he was able to do that. He was very much a socialist. He was believed in, at that time in Brazil, there was a military regime, and he was often standing up against them. He founded, for the football team he played for, the Corinthians, Democracy. I know that, and very much just a chain smoker and things like that. You've seen the things he did for that team, that Brazil team. It's one of the shames you don't really see. He played, I think, briefly in Europe, if I'm right. I should probably check that. I think he may have played for Fiorentina, but he didn't really. He played for a few teams in Brazil. There's not as much footage that you maybe would have seen, because he was around the same time as people like Maradona and Cruyff and people like that. You don't see as much footage of him. Only them. In 1982, he did play in '86, but I think for me, yeah, just he was one that jumped out as I say. I think if we do this feature about teams we loved and things like that, I think I will mention that Brazil team a few times. But as a Maverick, I think just was a bit different, as I say, the way he played. Such a graceful and a lovely footballer, and then off the pitch, the things he did a bit differently to other footballers at that time. Trying to get players voting and players talking. Probably a forebearer of like things like the PFA in our country, the players having a right to vote and the players having a discussion. I think he was definitely a forebearer of that.
Big John Lennon fan as well.
He was a big John Lennon fan, yeah. Didn't he say so? It was something like, I think I have read his biography recently. It's called Dr. Socrates, and he talks about that. I think he loved Fidel Castro as well, didn't he? I think he was all them sort of things. So he probably gets Bob vote just for the John Lennon.
Haven't you got an interesting fact about him, Callum?
So interesting. No, obviously he went to, at that time where he signed for Cardiff in like the lower leagues in England. I think he was maybe past 50 at that time, which was a big kind of, or maybe like a marketing ploy by the team at the time and for Brazilian soccer schools. He came over and played the game. I think, he's sitting there possibly smoking on the bench, but he got on. I think they won it at the time, and obviously I'm close to the person, Simon Clifford, who signed him and sort of managed them for that, and sort of he ended up being a close friend of his, Socrates, from like the 90s through 2000 until he passed away. And as another fact, the gloves he wore on the bench that night I've also worn on a cold day at Roundhay Park. So there's your link between me and Socrates.
Both great ballers as well. That's just a fact too.
Correct, them both with warm hands. So yeah, there you go.
Go on, lastly then, Bob. John.
I don't know where we go from there, really. Maybe should have gone for this fella after Socrates. We were debating whether this fella was the obvious one, but as we've already mentioned, John Lennon, I'm gonna go for El Beatle, George Best. Not just because of the nickname, but he was my dad's non-Everton football hero. So some of the stories just seem absolutely mental. So I'll go for him, really. Not that I've seen him play over the usual clips, but probably the very first football Maverick, I'd imagine.
As we were discussing what would be the obvious one, I think he was certainly someone that would have been in my thinking. Again, pretty much, I haven't checked, but I'm sure he's pretty much done as a footballer by the age of about 26, 27, I think. He won the European Cup United in 68, and he was very young then. He scored in the final. He'd left United by like 73, 74, and never really did much. It's a bit of a shame, and obviously the way it ended for him, but like I think in terms of that criteria of football maverick, like a genius on the pitch, and
a genius off it as well.
Yeah.
One of like the first to do that as well, wasn't he? As in like be that good, but equally have that big celebrity outside the footy as well.
Yeah, definitely. As I say, I think that there was a documentary a few years ago. I don't know if people see it on ITV. Is it called like Football Mavericks? And I think the people like Rodney Marsh and Frank Worthington and Tony Curry, I think they all sort of came after him, and that inspired that sort of generation that people loved. I think like sort of like every team sort of had a player like that, a bit of a mad player, but like a genius. And yeah, I think that's a lovely way to round it off, to be perfectly honest. So our first week in Maroon 5, we've got Gaza, Balotelli, Jamie Vardy, Socrates, and George Best. Some five-a-side team now.
No one going in goal.
Callum
I'll
Cannon.
put the gloves.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, but we can hear everyone else.
Everyone else.
Universal conversation.
Tell everyone in there about the podcast, Bob.
Will do on my way out.
Might get a few more listeners.
So last week's game was Spurs versus Sheffield United. Quite an exciting game, really, by the end of it. Lots of talking points. I think there was possibly one person who got a correct prediction, but I'll let him sort of tell you all that. But yeah, a good game. Obviously, I think we all said Spurs were going to win. Looked for a long time like that wasn't going to happen. As Evertonians, I think we were all a bit worried that Sheffield United were going to get 3 points on the board. But yeah, I think the class and quality sort of shone through at the end. Anyone have any thoughts on how it went? Or
Yeah, my main thing, Carl, just to pull you up. I can't say I watched the match. I've seen obviously the highlights and that. When you say about like the class shone through, the thing that struck me, and I kind of want to see what you lot think. You know, like all this added time at the end of matches. Like I don't want to sound like Gary Neville moaning about it, but is it just something that's gonna benefit the bigger teams more than the little ones? Because the thing there, when it went 1-1, Sheffield United's edge just fell off, like totally. Everything, all the basics that they were doing in beforehand, even playing out from the back, they just didn't know what they were doing because they were obviously so close to a 3 points against Tottenham that were doing huge. Got pegged back 1-1, and then their heads just went. And then I think the little teams are going to suffer a lot more.
yeah, definitely. I think it's hard enough to keep a team shut out for 90 minutes than to have another 10 minutes on top of that when you're already tired and yes, mentally and physically tired and stuff. I mean, it's.
No, I was saying, I think completely agree that it is that thing to favour the big. Likewise, the same with like 5 subs and things like that. It's all geared towards that thing. Even I said that we said a few times. If it was the other way around, would Sheffield United have got that much injury time? I know. The time wasting comes in. Did anyone see that Hecking Bottoms interview after it when he was talking about that? And talking about his keeper getting booked after 10 minutes and like the referee telling him you'll just have to go long and things like that. And I just don't really get it. I think like I don't think anyone was asking for this personally, like that sort of change. Like, certainly myself going to like Goodison, last thing I want to see is like 10 more minutes at the end of the game.
We only got 4, didn't we? So
yeah, and again, like the 4 minutes.
That should have been about 12.
I was thankful, to be honest, but yeah, I say I feel for someone like Sheffield United because that's the sort of result that might turn a season. And we've seen last year that goes to the last day where 3 teams are fighting for that last place. And them 3 points could be anything. And as I say, I'm sure if you totted it up right, the referee's probably done it right. That all the time wasted and things like that. But as I say, you've got like as Sean says, they just think everyone sort of thought when they scored 1, they might get another here because that will have done Sheffield United. And pleased for Richarlison because obviously came out last week and said of his sort of struggles. So obviously I think we've mentioned in other podcasts how much we all love him. But yeah, it was nice for him in the scene. It was nice of Son. He's not one of our favourites to sort of push him towards the front. I thought that was a nice touch, but
he's trying to break it ankle.
Could well have been
libelous. Yeah, I agree. I think the time wasting thing is definitely just to benefit the big clubs, and like it's who decides what time wasting is. I could bet you if you looked at it, I bet you there's probably not much difference than maybe what the Tottenham keeper was taking in terms of time I had to take than what Sheffield United are. Because Sheffield United like a lower team, it seemed like their time wasting. Whereas if Tottenham were doing the same time, like just benefits like I think they just go for like the lower of the power kind of dynamic and assume it must be time wasting. Whereas, if a Tottenham were taking the time to consider what pass, I think the argument would be like, oh no, they're not time wasting because it's only against Sheffield United, so they can't be time wasting. But
I don't keep linking back to Everton, but like the Arsenal on Saturday, they were time wasting. Obviously, they were chasing the game. There was one corner that took something like 30 seconds to take, wasn't it? Like it was the Sky made the deal of that, and that's no one was really appealing time waste because just sometimes where it takes. And I think last night I was watching Forest Burnley, and I think the Burnley goalkeeper was booked after like 8 minutes or something mad like that for time wasting. It's just like, just feels stupid, and it just feels like again the referees just sort of trying to, of all the things that the wrong with the game. I don't think that minutes at the end is the main problem. The referees and getting all these decisions wrong and missing penalties, and much. I know it's obviously not. They don't have to both be. It's not one or the other, but I don't know. Just
I wouldn't be surprised. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if it's like for some sort of like long-term decision. There's always like the idea of the games being shortened. Kind of, I think it might be a case of like they're trying to force the players' hands on that, where the games are getting so long where the players have no choice but to go, yeah, they need to be short, and then we'll just play in the time the ball's like on the pitch and stuff. I don't know if that's kind of in the thinking. It's kind of ruin it so much. Yeah, to ruin it so much, and like the well-being of players if they are playing 105 minutes every game, that they just sort of go, okay, we'll stop it. We'll go to, I don't know what the time was, 60 or 70 minutes was kind of mooted as a bit of a stop clock. So yeah,
it's 105 minutes. Where, as we said earlier about the subs, isn't it? Where like Sheffield United probably don't know one to bring on, like Everton like that at the moment. Whereas Tottenham can bring off Richarlison, £60 million footballer, Brennan Johnson, who they just paid. They can bring all these people on, and they've got energy for basically half their team. With Sheffield United fighting with the same people, just trying to sort of defend a lead, and it just doesn't sit right with you, I don't think.
I agree.
And if I can have another moan, where do you stand on? Because I know we used to make fun of Liverpool for this when they did I think that West Brom when they drew, when Tottenham did the big thing to the fans, and they were getting slated all over the internet for celebrating.
I think you've got to do that. Win 2-1 like that, scoring those 2 late goals. I don't think there's any problem with doing that to your home fans. Like the emotion in that, and then obviously I think it was like obviously for like Richarlison and stuff to put him at the front and to build like a winning feeling. I don't think there's anything wrong with that at all. Like.
Yeah,
no, it's something they've always done. I like Coppola's or Jenny, but again, like I completely agree. I don't understand why anyone would have a problem with it. And some seat behind the goal that second looked unbelievable, didn't it? Like the celebrations behind it.
Right, should we spin the wheel and see next week's game?
Sounds good.
What did you say, sorry?
I'm doing the wheel, Bob.
All right, okay.
Okay.
I'm on the move. Quieter now.
Yeah, but you're going to be walking through town.
A busker or something.
Yeah, but I'm now. No, I'm no longer moving.
Make sure this gets edited out.
These are the rules. We select 3 matches from this week's fixtures, which are entered into the Wheel of Fortune. This will randomly select our featured game. This match will be the focus of our discussions, predictions, and most importantly, our game of keeping up appearances. Once our fixture has been chosen, we'll use an online generator to provide a target number for our game. For us, this is anything between 50 and 450. Our job then is to think of a player who's made that many appearances for either of our selected teams. Whoever's closest wins. Each week, 4 points will go to the closest person, 3 points for second place, 2 points will go to third place, and the person who's furthest away gets 1. These points will be accumulated over the whole season, and we'll update our league table each week.
Our 3 games this week then are Chelsea Villa, Liverpool West Ham, and North London Derby Arsenal Tottenham, which I think is the game we are hoping for. Even though it will be Tottenham 2 weeks on the run, but obviously it's the biggest game of the weekend, so let's see. And lucky for us, it is Arsenal Tottenham.
Ooh, big one.
Yeah, I mean, I've not really got anything else to say about Tottenham, to be fair, so be very Arsenal heavy.
I mean, obviously it's a massive game, isn't it? It seems like it's possibly one of the first like big games of like the season so far in terms of like, does this have any kind of play on that I know it's early for a title race, but who's going to be right up there? It's potentially a big 3 points to be taken like right now by either of those teams. Tottenham take that big 3 points and they're right up there and they'll feel right, okay, let's keep this going. Arsenal win that and think, okay, yeah, we're still around, like don't count us out. So yeah, big 3 points. Both teams in like good form and good spirits. I think obviously Arsenal have got Champions League tomorrow night, I think.
PSV, isn't
it? Yeah, so you see how they come out of that, and yeah, it should be an exciting game. I think it's a lot of good players on show. I think tactically it would be interesting as well, like to see how they both fare against each other. But yeah, it should be a good one.
Interesting seeing Arsenal on Sunday. Obviously, they weren't up against much, but the system just seems there, and you think like Rice has just made such a great addition to that. Everything just seems to be going through him, and I think
for the season.
Yeah, I think Martinelli could be a doubt. He's definitely not playing tomorrow. They reckon he could, and I think he can still bring the likes of Trossard off the bench, who is so good when he on his day. I think, yeah, it should be a great game. I often think like when people talk about derbies in my head, of Everton Liverpool often sometimes disappoints. Certainly for us, and sometimes the Manchester derby does, but I just always think the North London derby seems to be a great game.
Yeah, it's got goals in it.
Just always seems to be goals. Always action. I don't know. Maybe it might just be one of them things in your head, but I think this one it should be set up. You think the way Tottenham are playing, Tottenham are attacking. They're going to go out at Arsenal. Arsenal are obviously well set up. I think it could be it's a really tough one to call. Really, I think. I think Tottenham. If you think where they were towards the end of last year, I haven't seen what Arsenal have done all season, the way the season Tottenham had, to think that they'd be going into the North London derby after 5-6 games in the position they are, really confident of going there, and they will be. That they'll think they can go there and win. And
yeah,
I think they can too.
I agree.
But yeah, and I say Arsenal, like, good. Did you see the system? And you only really notice things like that. I only noticed from being there, watching them, the way like Zinchenko's in the middle of basically playing in the middle of midfield, isn't he? Just like thought he was fantastic the other day, and like a few of the others as well. Just even Saliba didn't have to do much, but a couple of times where people were running at him, he's just like no one seems to be able to get past him. So it's going to be tough for Tottenham to score, but I do actually think they will.
Yeah, I think Arsenal look very well coached, obviously very well drilled. I think they all know the roles, I think, and pressing is really good, and they seem to work together and off triggers and stuff. Again, the bench is like super strong. The bench against us at the weekend was insane in the plays they could have brought on there. And I think I put Rice as my sign of the season. I think he's been so key for that team and what he does, and that sort of positionally and tactically what he brings and what he does for the Arsenal team is special. Like, so yeah, it should be an interesting game. I think there's probably goals in it for both sides, to be honest. Yeah, what do you reckon, Sean?
Well, historically, as Tosh says, you don't generally get many draws. Do you know, like I always think, as Tosh said about like Merseyside derby, it's either Everton get battered or it's a draw. As far as I remember, in North London derbies, there's generally not that many draws, and it seems to be like switches between who wins. It's not like one team dominates. Like you kind of know in certain derbies. However, this one, I do think Arsenal will win. I know they both started well, and I think if I'm right, I think they both aren't level on points as well. Joint with Liverpool as well. I'm sure they are. So obviously these 3 points will be massive. But as Tosh says, I know they weren't up against much, but Arsenal at the back, I just think they look solid. They've got the kind of the original back four from last season back, which I think plays a massive part. The goalie situation's a bit iffy at the minute. Is Ramsdale out now, or
no? What he said is he's using them like tactically, so he's using them as like two like different like actual like players. And like depending on the game tactically, he's going to use them for different reasons. He said he was close to subbing Ramsdale on at the weekend as a tactical decision.
Okay. Probably up front. Just to net with no threat.
Yeah.
But
so
I mean,
yeah. It's not a case of like number ones. It's just a case of like tactically for different games, you're using different like attributes in the keepers.
Is it not just a case of look at me trying to be clever?
Probably, yeah. But Oh well.
I think that Ramsdale's absolutely dreadful. I
Yeah,
don't
I'm
see.
not a fan of his, to be fair.
Whereas I thought he was. I mean, he was very good on the ball, right? Because obviously, I don't think he had to use his hands at any point, but he was good on the ball on Sunday. I thought.
But yeah, that's
Um,
probably something we'll see a bit more of. Maybe we'll see Andy Lonergan come on in the 70th minute.
I don't know.
right, should we get some predictions in? Sean, set the ball
Go for
rolling.
it.
Well, I actually got it right last week, which is a bone of contention because I think I should get something for that. I think I should get extra points or take points off someone, but someone's being a big baby and won't let me have it. So I'm going to go for an Arsenal win. I know Tottenham are high scoring, but I'm going to go 2-1 Arsenal.
I'll go next. I'm going to go the exact opposite way. I'm going to go a Spurs win. I'm going to go a 2-1 Spurs win. I think, yeah, hard to call. I just think I'm hoping in my prediction that it's quite cagey, not cagey early on, but Arsenal don't get ahead. I think if Arsenal get ahead, he could win comfortably, actually. But I think if it keeps Tottenham keep them quiet, maybe nick an early goal, I think Arsenal might panic a bit. So I'm going to go 2-1 Spurs.
I'll go 1-0 Spurs with Richarlison winner. Take his top off last minute win.
Not very specific.
It's what we all
think-
what we all
Can
want
have
to
some
see.
extra points if that's right.
I had a feeling that, like Tosh said there, that there's potential. I think one team might run away with it and we might get a massive surprise. And I think that it just could end up with a mad game, like a 3 or 4 nil. Just I don't know, just a feeling that might happen. But I'm going to go against everything that Sean said, and I think it's going to be 2-2. I think it's going to be a draw, high scoring draw. I'm going to go 2-2. I'm not going to predict any celebrations or who might score in the last minute or not. But yeah, I'll go with 2-2.
Right then, should we move on to keeping up appearances?
Right. I've done all the maths. Our number for this week is 175.
Great number. All the best we've had so far.
It's a very good number. The only better number than that is 249, I think. But yeah.
So we'll take a couple of minutes, as we always do, try and come up with a couple of answers. We'll be back when we've got our players.
What was the number again?
175. Oh, it's a bit like the Nuno Valente, isn't it? That was 177.
You did really well on that one as well. So
Exactly.
I think I'm ready.
yeah, I'm just going to go again. I'm not confident.
But you have to fly through this so Bob can go.
I'm going to go then. William Gallas for Arsenal.
Anyone else?
I'll go next. I struggled. I think I've lost the magic touch here. I'm going to go. First one that came into my head was Samir Nasri. I thought he was there around about 3-4 seasons, but I'm not confident he was there that long. He obviously went to City. So the other one I'm going for again, I think it'll be on the lower side. I don't certainly will be more. The one that comes to my head was a player I loved, Arshavin. Again, I'm not sure he'd have been there that long, so I'm not confident. But that's the one that I'm going to opt for.
He was one of mine.
Yeah, about the
Was
rest
he
of the
actually?
first page.
Yeah, he was, yeah.
Oh, see, I thought that would have been low, so that makes me feel a bit better.
I haven't got a clue either, so
I don't think he should be able to pick Russians.
I'm actually only going to pick Russians, so.
yeah, all three of them, you know.
Sergei Rebrov from?
Ukraine, isn't he?
Oh, touchy that. Touched the nerve there.
In the end, I got 3. I'll tell you one of them because I think it's absolutely mad. But it was me little. If I haven't got it, I'll go for this. And it was my Bob might have had the Everton link. It was Senderos because he was there. I thought he was there quite a while.
He doesn't count as an Everton link, sure.
I think he was there ages, but obviously only played.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Again, you'd be surprised if he was that high, but it probably also more than you think as well. Yeah.
And And then the other one was a man from last week. It was Robin van Persie. But I don't know if he'd be too high because he was there a lot longer, wasn't he?
He's always injury prone is the thing, wasn't he? But again, I would say that I'd guess that was higher. Is that your answer anyway?
Oh, I don't know. You told me out of it.
No, can't do that. You answered your answer.
Go on then. Yeah. Oh, I did it with Valencia. Yeah, I'll stick with it, even though. Yeah.
You want Van Persie?
Yeah, go on.
I think he'll be way off, but
So do I.
I think he'll be so much more. I think
But
he'll be a lot more.
Tosh, told me into it now.
I think he'll be a
You
lot
can't
more.
stop throwing names. You said you had 3 names. One of them was Ashford, and you said Senderos and
Yeah, that's 3.
I think
yeah.
he'll
So
be
you
100
can't be flicking between them. Come
No,
on.
no. Alright.
Van Persie probably scored 175 goals for Arsenal,
Really?
I reckon.
A goal a game it was though.
He was famously a goal a game, so Sean has one.
Get in.
Right, I was obviously thinking again on like 4 seasons.
Thank you, Valley, or
Yeah, I was.
Oh, what a night!
I had 2 players. One who kind of obviously broke through quite young, quite injured, but there for a long time. Another who was there for I think possibly a few years. The one I think was Alexis Sanchez, possibly there for a few years.
That's good, Chelsea.
But I'm not too sure how long it was. And then
13 minutes, Callum.
that's how long he was there. You wouldn't have got that many games in that. I'll go with my other guest though. I'll go with Jack Wilshere, thinking that he was there for a lot longer, but probably played a lot less games. So I'll go with Jack Wilshere.
That was like me with Senderos.
Possibly, yeah.
both similarly talented as well. So
Yeah.
I think I've got to say I like both your guesses. I think they're 2 good ones. I think. Right, shall I quickly do the check? Try and do the check.
Have you got time, Bob?
Yeah. Sure, it won't take 12 minutes.
Well, it is me on this website, so.
Junge mit einer unheimlichen Qualität, hat einen guten.
That's Urs Fisher talking about a young player with great quality.
You just said Van Persie's a terrible shout.
You'd guess.
Oh,
Might get copyrighted for that, Sean.
yeah, it won't be going in. Don't worry.
Okay, then. Ready?
Mhm.
Okay, so I've just checked using Transfer Market. So I'll read out the following again. Not bad guesses for them number. Well, one bad guess. In 4th place this week is Robin van Persie with 278 appearances, so 103 out.
I said it was 100.
Sean's numbers around 170 are just not good for him. And then 3rd and 2nd place were very close. So in 3rd place, William Gallas for Bob was 142, so 33 out. 2nd place was me with Arshavin, who got 144 appearances, so 2 more than Gallas, so 31 out. And in 1st place this week, Callum Wilshere, 197, which is 22 out. So pretty good guess from Callum this week, which gets him a much needed 4 points.
Here's a much needed 4 points. Thanks, Jackie Wilshere.
Yeah, another one maybe didn't fulfill his potential.
Correct.
Fairly.
Sweet left foot.
Now coaching back at Arsenal, I think, isn't he?
He is, yeah. I think does the under 18s or under 21s.
Let's have a quick look then at our updated league table. Once again, there's no changes in terms of positions, but it's become a lot tighter after this week's game. Tosh is still on top with 22, Sean's in 2nd with 18, Bob's in 3rd with 17, and Callum's massively closed the gap with his win, and he's now on 16 points.
Right then, go and wrap it up, Callum.
Right then, so that was another episode of the Keeping Up Appearances podcast. We had our first introduction of Marooned 5, which I think went quite well. Mavericks edition. Hopefully,
You might say the greatest feature in radio.
We definitely say. And yeah, I got another good game of Keeping Up Appearances. I managed to get myself a much needed 4 points. Hopefully that changes the scoreboard a little. And yeah, we look forward to North London derby this weekend. have a watch of it, and yeah, we'll see you next week to review and go for the next week big game and whatever Maroon 5 topic we can think of. Anything anyone to add?
What film are you seeing, Bob?
Home money.
Let us know what it's like.
Yeah, I will do.
Hopefully you enjoy it more than you enjoyed this podcast.